Welcome to Career Paths for Artists by the Arizona School of Art. This was in the planning stage for a couple of years, uh, based on discussions with alumni by Director Colin Blakely. The one thing they wished that had happened that didn't was more preparation for what happens after the last school bell rings. So we put this together for you. You are not the guinea pigs, you are the jury. This is a juried show. We really want to hear from you on what you liked and didn't like about it, what you'd like to see done that we didn't do. If you are missing something and you don't speak up, you are dooming the next class to the same fate. This is about what's next for your life. Now, what makes me think I'm qualified to deliver this? Well, I'm an engineer with an MBA. That doesn't do it. Was in manufacturing for 5 years. That doesn't do it. And I became an entrepreneur, and that might be helpful to you. I owned 3 businesses that were successful and one other, and you can learn from my mistakes. It's easier than making them. After I sold one of my businesses, which happened to be a chain of restaurants, I had a lot of time on my hands, so I signed on with the University of Connecticut outreach program called the Small Business Development Center, and I worked with thousands of people came to my workshops like this one, and I helped hundreds either start or save businesses. Some of those clients were artists. I worked with artists from the Rhode Island School of Design, Yale University, and lots of other places. So I understand what it's like for an artist to try and start their own business. That's my email at the bottom. Pause this and write it down if you think you might like to contact. So this mentoring program will consist of individual counseling and live presentations. This is the schedule. This particular one you're listening to now on Career Paths, then Marketing on February 28th. Working with galleries will be a panel of gallery owners and people who have displayed in galleries about what to expect, how to pick the gallery, what not to do. Protecting your intellectual property, very important. It would be heartbreaking for you to find one of your designs on a billboard, print, or on TV being used to market products or services without even an attribute to you that you were the creator of that piece. There are simple ways to protect intellectual property, and we'll have an attorney actually go through that for you. And then we're going to have a panel of alumni talking about what they did, what their struggles were, what their successes were. Learn from others rather than before you start it yourself. Now you can pause this if you want to write down Denise's email. This is also who you should direct your comments to on this presentation, and I would appreciate every one of them. So this is what defines an artist by St. Francis of Assisi. In addition to that, think of this. In every way, each of us is as unique as our fingerprint, and so will be your art. And your future as an artist will be your unique individual path. If you're expecting a direction of exactly what to do from this presentation, I'm sorry. The best I can do is help you find your path. After you leave this wonderful school, the path divides. You could do art education. To say that you went to art school to teach art is not a waste of time. By now you know art is important. And teaching it is also important. Art is not something people desire or might like. It is a human basic need, and I will prove that in the marketing session next. Now, in art education, I say it's steady work because you get a paycheck every week, but you're subject to the school board and school system. In a university, you have the culture to deal with. So, like with any other job, you could lose it. And then there's the corporate world. You can work for a company doing art. Now is a great time because businesses have recognized that people want pretty things, and you as the artist can do a great job making things pretty. You also know how to communicate visually, which is important in the corporate world, communicating with customers and other stakeholders. Then there's entrepreneurship. You can sell your art. You can do commissioned art. There are ancillary things like running a gallery or doing art appraisal. That entrepreneurship comes in many flavors, as I say here, or none of the above. You may not have a career in art, and I'll get to that. In any case, whenever you think about what path you're going to take, there are ways to test it. You can learn about the school or the company. I'll give you some tips on how to find help to start your own business. You can take a look at these things very carefully and decide if that's the world you want to live in. Culture. If you work in a company, if you work for a school, there is culture. A lot of it is legacy, the way we've always done it. And then all the stakeholders have a say in how things happen. You have been indoctrinated into the University of Arizona culture. It happened so gradually you didn't appreciate it, but now I point out that you are part of that culture. If you meet somebody from the Arizona State, you know they're different. What's the difference? It's culture. So can you live with the culture of this company? You've got to take a good look at it from the outside and hopefully get an inside view. Interview the stakeholders. If you can, visit. See how people react. Are they happy? What makes them happy? What do they dislike about it? None of the above. You may not have a career in art, but you will always be an artist. You can still do art. You have some very important skills that you got from being an artist and your art education. You not only can engage your creativity, you can manage it. You have the discipline to see a project through without getting obsessed. You know every piece you've ever done. You could work on it forever. It'll never be perfect. You know when to say, okay, this is good. I can go with this. That's important. You can deal with abstract concepts and the unexpected, which is a part of your creative energy. Very important as you go through a career. Creativity gets more important as you progress. And you can communicate visually, which means you can communicate. And no matter what you do, these skills will come in handy. Art education comes in different styles. K through 12, you'd be in a school system. College, you're in the college culture. Your artistic decisions are shared. You're not entirely independent to make your own curriculum, but you can ask how this teaching job works. What are the expectations? What are the limitations? If you want to open a school, well, you're back in the entrepreneur category, and you have to deal with a lot of other stakeholders, and the market will determine your art, or you will be a starving artist. Don't do art for yourself. If you're going to sell art, you have to do it for the market. Here's an example. A client of mine back in Connecticut, Barn for Artistic Youth, pause the show and write down that website, because if you go there, you will see how everything she does is for that market. The hours she keeps, the way she organizes her class. Sophia went through a graduate program in art education at the Rhode Island School of Design and didn't want to be in a school system. She wanted her own school. So everything she does is for those students. She put it in a barn, which in Connecticut we call a gentleman's farm. A gentleman's farm in Connecticut means they don't raise crops. They might have horses, and somebody else takes care of the horses. But on the first floor of her barn is her gallery, and on the second is her class. In her gallery, she does not display any pieces of her own. She doesn't want to set a bar. She doesn't want people to try and copy her. She wants them to learn their own creative path. Excellent example. The corporate world. There are a lot of jobs for artists in the corporate world, but unfortunately, the jobs have become very specialized. 25 years ago, if you knew either Adobe or Corel, you could get a job doing anything and do all kinds of different things. Now they want somebody with experience in one platform to do one thing. And that's not bad, because that's just your start. Now I'll give you a lesson in legacy. You see the headlights on that car? Where did they come from? They copied the headlight on the railroad, on the steam locomotive, and that's round because the boiler's round. I worked in the automotive industry when I was in manufacturing, and innovation is not really welcome there. They cling to legacy because of the safety. That's the way we do it. Change is risky. It took 80 years for this to happen. Square headlights, oh my God, it was a revolution. And it didn't even come from the American automotive industry, it came from Europe. So how did we get to this? Artists finally took over. No, I'm sorry, technology ruled. In order to make the required mileage by law, they had to cut the power requirements, the electric power. Electric power comes from the engine. The less electric power, the better the mileage. LED lights use a fraction of the electric power as an incandescent. So they were chosen, and they allowed a little more design flexibility. Here's the corporate ladder, or the ladder in any business. At the bottom is specialization, as I said. But at the top is creativity. The people at the top are expected to be able to handle the unexpected, to be able to take the company in continuous improvement, new directions. So you may start specialized, but your creativity is going to take you further up the ladder. Now, entrepreneurship has many paths. You could sell your art. You could sell commissions. Any art sold before it's produced is art done on commission. You could do demonstrations. I know an artist who did very well by doing art demonstrations for different groups, and got paid quite handsomely to startle them with his talent. You can consult. And you can do, as I said before, ancillary services. These two paintings are art that I commissioned of my pets. People spend a lot of money on pets. And I found this guy at a street fair, and I found this lady who did my dog online. There's a lot of money in pets, and it's easier doing pets than children because everybody knows their child is perfect, so your art has to be perfect to do the job. Entrepreneurship. What does it take? Now, this is my specialty. If you want to be an entrepreneur, come see me. There are 3 skill sets an entrepreneur must have. We call it the 3-legged stool because, like a 3-legged stool, if one of those skill sets is weak, the entire thing is going to collapse regardless of how strong the other 2 legs are. There's production, making the art. You can do that. You've learned to do that. That's something nobody can help you with. You have to do the production. Marketing, selling the art. I'm going to do a whole presentation on marketing. And business systems. If you're going to have a business, you're going to have business systems, whether you like it or not. Accounting is simply recording all the money going out, all the money coming in meaningful categories called accounts, accounting. The clients of mine who didn't do it all failed, and we'll never know why because we don't know which expense was too high, which product was a loser. If they had done accounting, we could have saved the business. We'd know what was going wrong. I've dragged a lot of clients kicking and screaming to do accounting, and once they do it, they say, wow, this is great. It's always repetitive. Once you figure it out, it's the same thing. And it gives you information about your business that's not available anywhere else. You're going to have policy and procedure, whether you like it or not. Policy and procedure are the autopilots that run your business without taking your precious time. The first time a customer asks you a question about your policy, you better have figured it out, or you're going to have to stop and figure it out on the spot, which is never optimal. Let's say you're displaying a piece of art and a customer comes up and says, I really like that, but I don't have the $1,500 today. I'll give you $500 today and $100 every week until it's paid in full. I could come up with a credit policy with you that you could use, but if you try and figure it out on the spot, you're very likely to put yourself at a credit risk. And what if there's a guy standing right behind him who's got the $1,500 but doesn't want to interrupt because he's a polite fellow and he's waiting to see what you say? Policy and procedure are autopilot. And if you're going to have employees, you're going to have human resource systems. You're going to have to figure out when they get vacations, what benefits they get. Even if you're a one-man show or one-woman show, how are you going to get health insurance? It's the same skill. You can be your own boss. The American dream is available to you. In most countries, the American phrase make money, as in he started selling art and made a lot of money, would not translate into their language because they don't have those opportunities. But the bad news is, so does everybody else. It's very competitive out there, and your freedom is also free to go broke. And there are rules to protect customers and employees and so forth. Oh, wait, there's a little more to entrepreneurship. You need these resources, very important. Your mission, what are you going to do in the marketplace? What are you going to do for people that they will want more than their money? That's your mission. Your vision is how you're going to get that done. Your time is the most precious resource. You're going to run out of it every day. You better use it to its best, and you're going to have to put in the time in your business. I've had clients that simply didn't show up. Their business didn't exist. I'd send people to them for their services, and they'd come back to me and say, she's never open. Well, time, put it to good use. Enough capital to get started. I'll explain later how to figure out how much you need. You need to be able to negotiate. When you're in business, you're going to be negotiating all the time with that customer that wants to buy your painting, with the gallery that you want to get into, with the people running a street fair that you want a booth in. I could send you to a course on negotiating. You could spend a load of money and spend a lot of time learning how to negotiate. But the fact is, you knew everything you needed to know about negotiation when you were 9. Here's how it worked. And I'm going to date myself saying this. I open up my lunchbox and I've got a bologna sandwich. Sally's sitting next to me and she says, "Ooh, I like bologna." She opens her lunchbox and she's got a peanut butter sandwich. And I say, "Wow, I love peanut butter." And she says, "You want to trade?" That's it. That's all there is to it. You give to get. You find something that's more valuable to the person you're negotiating with than it is to you, to trade for something that's more valuable to you. Give what they want, get what you want. Getting back to what you need to be an entrepreneur, you have certain traits. You have to be able to work independently. As an artist, you pretty much learn that sculpture, that painting, that work of art is not going to make itself. And as an entrepreneur, you wake up every day unemployed and you have to create your job again. You need discipline to stay on the path to the vision, accomplish the mission, and not to be obsessed with it. You may have to change it. If you learn something about the market, employ it. Don't ignore it. You need responsibility. There's nobody to call in. If you want to call in sick, there's nobody to call. And you need to be tolerant for risk. Owning your own business has a certain degree of risk, but you must not be a fool. The difference between a fool and a calculated risk taker is the fool doesn't know this. The green curve is sales. The red curve is costs and expenses, which in business are not the same, but for the purpose of this discussion, we'll aggregate them. This is the timeline for every business that ever was or will be, from time 0 to maturity, and a lot of businesses eventually decline. At time 0, costs and expenses start above 0. Before you even open a business, there are expenses. Sales do start at 0. You do not deserve any sales. You have to earn every one of them. This is the break-even point where the curves intersect. You have to get to break even before you run out of money. How much money do you need? Well, geometrically, it's the area between the two curves before they intersect. We can't solve it geometrically, but we can model the business with financial projections month by month and figure out what we need until we get to break even. It sounds daunting if you're not familiar with business. It's easy. I've done it with hundreds of people, and I can do it with you. Don't let me scare you. I've just thrown a lot out about what it takes to be an entrepreneur, but the truth is that millions of Americans own their own business. According to the Internal Revenue Service, 1 out of 4 tax returns come with a form giving profit and loss from a business. 1 out of 4 Americans or families own a business. That means you can do it if you just know 3 people dumber than you. No, you can do it, believe me. Ask for help before you need it. Here are some resources. And I'll get to the Forge, but the rest of them, the world wants you to be a successful businessman. Businesses pay taxes. Businesses create jobs. There's a lot of help out there that's free of charge. Wherever you go after you graduate, look up your local government and ask about economic development assistance, and they all have it. All right. Uh, People who don't seek help are going to have a problem, and seek it before you desperately need it. I've had people come to me when they've run out of money. They maxed out their credit cards. Their friends and family won't even speak with them because they don't want to give them any more money. And they say to me, "Can you help?" And I say, "What do you think I can do?" I can't change the market. I can only change your business. And it's too late to change because we need time to change it. And you're out of money. The best I could do is try and give them the softest crash landing possible. Don't let that happen to you. And oh, by the way, most of the people who got into that situation were selling what they like, not what the market wanted. The Arizona Forge. This is right on campus. You can investigate entrepreneurship while you're still here. You can go to some of their networking events. They have workshops. It's an excellent resource. And there's the location and the website. Another takeaway, I told you, don't be obsessed. You have to adapt. Here's a lesson from Michelangelo. You see that painting on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel? He didn't want to do that. He was 30 years old, was establishing himself as a sculptor, not a painter. He didn't want to paint the Sistine Chapel. He actually left Rome and went to Florence to hide out, but then he came back realizing that his patron, Pope Julius II, was the only game he had, and he better take care of his customer. So he did that painting, which is now one of his most famous works. He also did this sculpture called the Pietà, which in Italian means the pity. It's the deceased Christ on Mary's lap. And on Christ, you can't see it, but there's a banner and an inscription on the banner. And it's not a scripture or a religious inscription. It says, Michelangelo Buonarroti of Florence made this. He branded his product. You show me a successful artist, I'm in the business world, I'll tell you how he did it as a business. But once you develop a market, you can influence it. First, you have to have a market. Pablo Picasso was a genius at manipulating the market. He went from his pink period to his blue period, almost invented Cubism. Why did he do all those things? Well, he was a great artist. I went to the Picasso Museum in Barcelona, and his early work is almost photographically accurate, his still lifes and portraits. How did he get from that to Cubism? By always reinventing himself for his market. When he went through another period of creativity, he rendered the collection of all of his customers obsolete unless they bought some more stuff. You can do that, but first you have to have a market. Here's some lessons from some of my clients back in Connecticut. This gentleman, graduate of Rhode Island School of Design, loved woodworking. You can see the detail in this cabinetry. You don't get that from a factory. He could make a reproduction Chippendale that only an expert could tell from the original. Unfortunately, that's a limited market. Not many people buy fine furniture anymore. So he had to diversify a bit, and I had to drag him kicking and screaming into other products. I commissioned this piece to mount my ship's clock and barometer. And he did some research and he found this mount that was square. And I said, no, it's got to be narrow. It won't fit where I want to fit it. And he said, would you consider putting it somewhere else? And I said, stop right there. When they say the customer's always right, they mean the customer knows what he wants. The customer is not always right in anything else, but they know what they want. You give the customer what they want. So he made this for me, and I was very happy with it. And then he got diversified a little bit more. Found that not everybody would buy this table that he made for $1,000, but most people would fork over $100 from one of his turned bowls. So he started a different product line. He adapted to the market. Good guy. Another one of my clients, Jennifer was doing furniture refinishing. You can see these fine pieces that I'm showing. Imagine what it would take to refinish those. And she wasn't making much money because the market would not pay her as much as they really should have. She was working by the hour for minimum wage. So she went to her accountant and she said, "What should I do?" And he said, "Get married." I kid you not, that's awful. She came to me and I said, "Well, we've got to realign this." And she went back to become a certified appraiser. Now, instead of refinishing these pieces, she appraises them. And the market is huge because a lot of people get divorced and everybody dies. And on those events, their property has to have a value. So she sets those values. How do you appraise something like this? She can. Coming to the conclusion, you are never defeated till you surrender. No matter what you do, it's going to take some perseverance. That's going to be the lesson that the alumni tell you. It doesn't work. Don't expect to be a success all at once, but don't be a junkyard dog. The junkyard dog is persistent. Good dog. That's what we want you to do. The good junkyard dog is also obsessed. The junkyard dog is always going to be a junkyard dog. You've got to adapt to your market, your employer, your school system, and you'll get along well. You don't have to be alone. I told you there's a lot of help. Build a support network, and don't be so fierce. When I owned my own business, I found myself fiercely defending it against threats, and I had to calm myself down because I don't want to be known as a hothead. So now, bonus slide. How to get a job. Understand, I've hired thousands of people in my time. So let me give you some ideas. Do not apply for a job you don't want. That sounds logical, but you may start to compromise and say, "I really need a job. I'll do that. I know I'm going to hate it. I'm going to keep looking for the right job." Boy, is that a mistake. You'll be known very soon as a disloyal and exploitive person. If you need money, do something else while you look for the right job. I moved furniture. The moving company knew I was going to be a temp, but I was big and strong then, and they wanted to take a chance and use me. Learn as much as you can about the organization before you apply, because you need to customize your resume for each job. The resume is probably the only thing that will be looked at in the initial selection process. Your application, your cover letter, whatever else, won't be circulated until later. And you need to have the right search strings. Your resume may be scanned into a computer that's looking for the right words, and if you don't have them, that's as far as you get. What are the right words? They're in the job description. They're in the information you learned about the company. You talked to some people, didn't you? Get your search strings in your resume. Now, then there's the selection set. You have to get in the selection set. When humans have too many choices, they do the same thing. Too many resumes, too many grant applications, too many met on that dating site. You do the same thing. You narrow it down to a selection set, rejecting as many candidates as you can in the first pass, taking fully the risk of rejecting perfectly good candidates, but you have to get it down to a selection set. There's so many choices. The 3 or 4 you got in the selection set are got to be good. There's got to be a good one in there somewhere. So how do you get in the selection set? Well, you have to have those search strings. You have to have a perfect resume as far as spelling and punctuation, and grammar, they will use that as an excuse to put you in the do not call pile. You have to have something in there that they look for. I told you about the search strings. In addition, some little extra thing might be helpful. Something that maybe isn't work experience, but an accomplishment that you can say, I did this. It's very helpful to get you in the selection set. Once you're in the selection set, you'll get an interview. In the interview, cover your strengths that match their needs. Remember, you did the research, and then ask meaningful questions. I was once interviewed for a job, and it was a manufacturing company, and I did some research, and I found that less than a year prior, they changed their manufacturing software. So in the interview, I said, how do you like that shop select software? And she said, oh man, it's got a lot of problems. I said, I know. I've heard about the fact that it doesn't gather the right data from the floor. She was so impressed, I got a job offer. I didn't take it because it was an hour-and-a-half commute, and I found something closer. But asking meaningful questions based on your research is going to get you a job. This brings us to the end. Don't forget to submit your brutally honest critique. And if you have questions, way back on slide number 2 was my email address. I'll be glad to help. Thank you.